All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Mission Command, Auftrag Staatig, Empowered Decentralization, written by Conrad Riker, available now, links in description. Patriarchal Systems, The Practical Anatomy of a Modern Delusion, a field guide for men who still notice reality. You return from a 12-hour shift, labor that demands physical exertion, building or fixing or guarding, leaving grime beneath your nails and a dull throb in your lower back you never voice, and she sits on the sofa. Not reading, not watching, just sitting. She looks up and her gaze is an open sore. You ask if all is well, fine. The word strikes like a brick, hurled through your front window from within. You press again. I said fine. The repetition carries the weight of a verdict. You understand now. With the certainty a sailor knows a storm is coming by the way the air tastes, that you have entered the tribunal. You just do not know the charge. There is no charge. There will never be a charge. The charge is classified, and you are not cleared to read it, but you will be sentenced anyway. The word silence comes to us from the Latin silere. To be still, and stillness in itself is a good thing. But strategic silence deployed as punishment is not stillness, it is a siege. It is covert aggression dressed in the garments of wounded virtue. In the medieval world, a lord would practice ductus, the deliberate withdrawal of his presence from a vassal's hall to signal displeasure and extract concession. What your wife is doing on that couch is not moodiness. It is 14th century power politics, and you are the vassal. Here is the logic, stripped of sentiment. Communication requires shared information. Strategic withholding of the cause of distress while signaling that distress exists destroys shared information by design. Therefore, the wounded silence is not a failure to communicate, it is an act of anti-communication, a deliberate annihilation of the reciprocity that makes a household function. You are being asked to stand trial in a courtroom where the indictment is sealed, the evidence is withheld, and the judge is also the alleged victim. Your job is to guess the crime, confess, and thank the court for its mercy. If you sat on that same couch, folded your arms, stared at the wall, and refused to explain yourself for an entire evening, every therapist in the Western world would diagnose you with stonewalling, a term pulled directly from marital research, as a predictor of divorce. She does it, and it is called processing. Her withdrawal gets framed as emotional depth. Yours gets framed as pathology. Same act, opposite verdicts, and the gavel never changes hands. You have been orbiting her mood all evening, adjusting your posture, your volume, your dinner conversation, performing the role of defense attorney for a case no one will file. 3 apologies by bedtime, each one a coin tossed into a well with no bottom. This is not a marriage. This is a loyalty oath extracted through psychological deprivation. And the first act of a free man is to name it calmly, clearly, and without apology, and then to sit down with his dinner and refuse to play detective in a mystery that exists only to make him beg. The wounded silence, how emotional ambush became female sabotage warfare. A medieval lord practiced what the records call ductus, the purposeful retreat of his presence to show displeasure and force a vassal's concession. Negotiation was impossible, for you were not told the fault. You could only submit, grovel, and hope the quiet ended before your harvest rotted. What feudal elites kept for political enemies, the modern woman has spread to the dining table. She falls silent, she appears hurt. And you, the man who built the table, paid for the kitchen, and wired the lights, are summoned to a trial where the charges are sealed. The evidence is classified and your conviction is already scheduled. The Latin salire means simply to be still. Strategic silence used to punish is not stillness. It is covert aggression wearing the mask of peace. She says nothing with visible agitation, and you know that nothing means everything. You spend the evening orbiting her mood like a satellite around a dying star, adjusting trajectory, guessing infractions, apologizing for causes unknown. By bedtime, you have said, "I'm sorry" 3 times without once being told what you did. This is not a marriage. This is a court proceeding with classified evidence and a predetermined verdict. Her internal weather system has been declared the supreme reality of the household, your exhaustion, your work, your thoughts, reclassified as irrelevant background, static against the thunder of her unspoken grievance. This is solipsism weaponized, the unshakable conviction that her feelings constitute the cosmos and your existence orbits them on probation. Boys learn this early. Mother sighs, teacher frowns, girlfriend's text ends with K. The message arrives before language. Male existence is probationary, subject to female emotional veto. By the time a man marries, he has been operantly conditioned towards servility. His instinct is to abandon his own judgment the moment her mood shifts. I have sat in family court mediation rooms where this tactic scaled up. Women refusing to state grievances. Lawyers leveraging manufactured mystery to extract better settlements. The courtroom becomes the living room enlarged, sealed evidence, unspoken charges, and a man told to just cooperate with a process designed around his assumption of guilt. And notice the asymmetry. When she withdraws, the culture calls it processing, needing space, protecting her peace. Every power move gets a therapeutic euphemism from an industry devoted to rebranding manipulation as wellness. But if you, the man, sat sullenly, refused to explain, looked wounded for an evening, the diagnosis arrives immediately: stonewalling, emotional abuse, a divorce predictor per Gottman research. Same act, opposite verdicts. Her withdrawal is sensitivity, yours is pathology. This is what gamma bias looks like from the inside. Female panic gets compassion, male withdrawal gets contempt. Justice requires that accusation be knowable. You cannot answer a charge never made. To punish a man for an unstated grievance violates the foundational principle that no one may be accuser, judge, and silent witness in his own case. A charge unspoken is not a charge owed. A verdict without evidence is tyranny, even at the dinner table. So here is your praxis. When she goes silent and wounded, state once clearly, "I see you are upset." When you are ready to tell me what is wrong, I will listen. I am not going to guess. Then return to your work. The tactic only functions if you volunteer for the interrogation. The man who stops playing detective starves the drama of its oxygen. But the silent treatment is only one head of the hydra. The deeper disease is that men have been stripped of any objective standard by which to prove themselves and then punished for failing tests whose criteria no one will name. I want you to feel the full absurdity of what we've lost, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Your grandfather lived in a world where a man's competence meant something solid, something a committee of feelings could never overrule. And we traded that inheritance for a grading system run by people who pack 3 pillows for a weekend trip and call you careless. The competence crucible, when can he explain it simply and can he pack fast, become extraction rituals. A medieval guildsman did not fear his master's mood, he feared the masterwork. The chair he built either held a fat merchant at feast or it collapsed, and no amount of "I felt really unsupported by your carpentry" could change the laws of physics. Competence, from the Latin competere, to strive together, to be suitable, meant fitness judged by the task's objective demands. The guild system evaluated a man against reality itself. The barrel either held water or it didn't. The blade either held an edge or it didn't. Then we replaced the masterwork with the girlfriend's feelings, and suddenly a man's luggage packing technique became evidence in a tribunal whose statutes are classified. Here is how the rigged game operates. She watches you pack for a weekend trip. You do it in 12 minutes, toothbrush, 2 shirts, charger, done. She takes 2 hours, reorganizes your bag, adds a steamer iron you will never use, then tells you that you lack planning. If you pack light, you're careless. If you're thorough, you're slow. The luggage was never the point. The point is whether you can be made to justify your efficiency to someone who has already rendered the verdict. Consider the logic. A fair test requires known, stable, objective criteria. These tests employ hidden, shifting, emotional criteria. Therefore, they are not competence tests at all. They are compliance rituals disguised as assessment. And every man who has stood in a hallway explaining his suitcase strategy to a woman who packed 14 pairs of underwear for a 2-day trip has felt the full weight of that truth. Now consider the same mechanism scaled into the workplace. I have lost count of the men who report female managers evaluating their performance through communication style and cultural fit rather than output. A software engineer explains his system architecture to his girlfriend. She calls it mansplaining. He shortens the explanation. Now he's being dismissive. He asks what level of detail she wants. She says, "You should just know. Gentlemen, that test was never about information transfer. It was about establishing that she controls the terms of engagement. Emotional intelligence, defined by the evaluator's comfort level rather than by objective interpersonal outcomes, becomes a license to fail any man for making any woman feel anything she doesn't enjoy. It is accreditation by the unaccredited. The gamma bias here is surgical. Male competence is assumed until proven absent, and then never forgiven. Female competence is celebrated upon demonstration and excused upon absence. He must earn trust constantly. She receives it as a birthright. When she overpacks, forgets items, or mismanages logistics, the culture calls it endearing, busy, or human. When he makes one error, it is evidence of fundamental male unreliability. Same imperfection, different theology. You carry civilization's operational load, the infrastructure, the logistics, the supply chains, the power grids, the server architecture, and then come home to have your suitcase audited by someone who has never run a supply chain in her life. Men account for over 92% of workplace fatalities, build and maintain nearly every system that keeps the lights on, and pay the overwhelming majority of net lifetime taxes. Then the bill arrives, but can he communicate? The deeper mechanism is this. Men are trained to seek female approval of their competence because the culture has made woman the certifying authority of male worth. A man's skill is never complete until a woman validates it. This is the matriarchal inversion. In a healthy order, competence is demonstrated and authority follows. In the feminist gynocentric order, female approval precedes recognition of competence. The cart declares itself the horse, and men internalize it. You begin rehearsing explanations, pre-packing defensively, double-checking your own competence against a phantom rubric. Your mind, built for problem-solving, gets hijacked into approval-seeking. That is cognitive taxation, a permanent background process burning your CPU for nothing. Here is the answer. A man must set his own bar for skill, anchored in what the job actually demands. Lay out your standards, meet them. Reject evaluation from anyone who cannot name their own measuring stick. Asking, what would satisfy you? Just once and with calm pushes the hidden rule into the light. If she fails to reply, the trick is revealed for what it is. Skill is shown by the bridge holding up, not by the observer's temper. The point of preparing gear is to reach the destination ready, not to act out obedience. The point of speaking is to share clarity, not to pass a mood check. A man who packs his own kit for his own path answers to the route, not to the crowd. Competentia means fit for the job is life. All else is play acting. I have watched this same hidden criteria machinery operate at civilizational scale, and nowhere is its cruelty more naked than in how a culture that audits a man's suitcase packing refuses to count his wounds. The pattern is identical, only the stakes escalate. The girlfriend who cannot articulate her packing rubric and the society that cannot articulate its trauma rubric are running the same program. Male performance is always suspect. Female discomfort is always sovereign. I am not speaking metaphorically. The mechanism that demands a man justify his luggage efficiency is the mechanism that demands a combat veteran justify his shattered mind to a therapist culture that has already categorized his suffering as adjustment. Disorder clinical language for your pain does not qualify for our compassion. Define the principle once and it governs every case. Whenever the evaluation standard is hidden, emotional, and sex selective, the test is never about what it claims to measure. It is about power. The competence audit was the courtyard. The trauma audit is the inner sanctum. The invisible wound, how the culture manufactured male trauma and then refused to name it. A veteran returns from battle with a fractured psyche. Yet for 100 years, society has handed down a single remedy: toughen up, drown the pain, and return to labor. The terminology shifted from shell shock to combat fatigue to PTSD, but the dismissal remained constant. Introduce a few women into the fighting zone, allow them to voice their distress, and observe the reaction. Task forces emerge, sensitivity protocols are drafted, congressional hearings begin, policy reforms follow. This produces a syllogism the culture cannot answer. If compassion is a virtue, it must apply to all who suffer. The culture grants compassion to female suffering and withholds it from male suffering. Therefore, the culture's compassion is not virtue. It is a political instrument, selective empathy weaponized against the very men who built the room where the conversation happens. Consider, men account for over 75% of suicides globally and over 90% of workplace deaths. They constitute the majority of the homeless. Yet trauma discourse, trauma funding, trauma research, and trauma language are overwhelmingly female-coded. A combat veteran with diagnosed PTSD ranks below a woman who received an uncomfortable comment online. That is not compassion. That is a parasite draped in the language of care. I have watched this mechanism in living rooms. A man shares something real in a mixed group. A childhood wound, a betrayal, a fear that wakes him at 3 a.m. The women shift in their seats. Within 2 minutes, the conversation has migrated to how his disclosure makes them feel. His wound becomes an occasion for her emotional labor complaint. The culture demands men be vulnerable, open up, share your feelings, be real. And when a man finally does, he is met with revulsion, loss of attraction, or weaponized disclosure later during an argument. The demand for vulnerability is not an invitation, it is a trap. You are asked to hand over ammunition and then punished for flinching when it gets used. A father of 3 loses custody after a false allegation. 18 months later, he is cleared. No apology, no restitution, no media coverage. His ex-wife retains primary custody. He develops clinical depression. His therapist notes adjustment disorder because the DSM does not recognize the state-sponsored theft of fatherhood as a wound. The family court apparatus functions as a trauma engine. Men lose children, homes, incomes, and reputations through proceedings that presume paternal inferiority, and the resulting PTSD, depression, and suicide get filed under deadbeat rather than casualty. Male suffering is privatized, his problem, his weakness, his failure to cope. Female suffering is politicized, society's failure, systemic injustice, evidence of oppression requiring funding, committees, and 4-part documentaries. The therapeutic industrial complex excludes men by design. Therapy models are built around female communication styles, verbal processing, emotional elaboration, relational framing. A man who processes trauma through silence, physical exertion, brotherhood, or focused action is told he is avoidant, emotionally unavailable, resistant to growth. When men kill themselves at 4 times the rate of women, the culture asks what's wrong with men, framing male despair as a male defect rather than a crime scene. Imagine the response if any other demographic showed those numbers. There would be emergency declarations. There would be marches. Men built this world. The wars, the mines, the railroads, the factories, the power grids, and their bodies are literally in the foundations of every institution. To call men a privileged class while standing on their graves qualifies as collective psychopathy. Here's the directive. Forge your own vocabulary for pain. Create brotherhoods that need no approval from the gatekeepers who shut you out. Describe injuries in direct terms, avoiding the clinical labels used by systems built to mark your reactions to unfairness as disorders. Find men who have endured comparable scars. Insist that male grief is recorded in the official tally. Reject the therapeutic model designed for women, which frames your quietness as illness and your deeds as running away. The Me Too apparatus destroys male lives before evidence is weighed. There is no movement for the falsely accused. No solidarity for the father stripped of his children. No special for the man who worked himself into an early grave, so others could call him privileged. A society that counts female tears and ignores male bodies will never name your wound. Name it yourself, and then get to work building what that society refuses to provide. But you cannot build against a force you have not named in its fullness. The compassion machinery that privatizes your suffering, the courts that treat fatherhood as a visitation right, the HR department that treats your competence as a liability. These are not bureaucratic accidents. They are not the natural drift of well-meaning institutions. They are the deliberate architecture of a revolution, and that revolution had a scripture, a prophetess, and a plan. Women as a revolutionary class. How Dworkin's dream became the operating system of ruin. In 1983, Andrea Dworkin faced a crowd and announced that women formed a revolutionary class, crushed by the very bones of male civilization. She offered this not as opinion, but as ontology, the silent framework of reality. Revolution comes from the Latin revolutio, a rolling back, a turning over. Yet Dworkin's revolution did not flip oppression. It overturned order. It did not free the captive. It smashed the prison, the guard judge, the law, the wall, the road, and the civilization that built them, then handed the rubble to the state and called it freedom. What began as a scream from the margins became, within 3 decades, the curriculum in your son's classroom, the protocol in your office, and the ruling in your divorce court. The revolution did not storm the gates. It was handed the keys by men too courteous to say no. That revolution now operates every institution you touch. Corporate HR is its vanguard. DEI mandates, unconscious bias training, pay equity audits, speech codes where male competence is instantly refiled under hostile environment. The workplace is no longer a place of work. It is a zone of ideological enforcement where female comfort outranks male output and representation metrics outrank demonstrated skill. The family court is its enforcement arm, no-fault divorce, presumptive maternal custody, support enforcement without paternal rights, false allegation incentives that would make a medieval inquisitor blush. The education system is its re-education camp, boys drugged for behaving like boys, graded by female teachers who reward female compliance, taught a curriculum framing every epoch as oppression and every man as villain. Sweden, the revolution's showroom, boasts Europe's highest rate of single-person households, declining marriage, rising antidepressant use, and a fertility rate meaning Swedes are simply voting themselves out of existence. The revolution's endgame is a beautiful, equal, lonely, childless apartment. Here is the syllogism the revolution cannot survive. Premise 1. A system that extracts resources from one class to subsidize another while blaming the donor class is parasitic. Premise 2. The current arrangement extracts male taxes, male labor, male risk, and male institutional sacrifice to fund female-centric welfare education and legal systems while demonizing masculinity as the source of all disorder. Conclusion. Dworkin's revolution did not liberate women. It installed a parasitic, genocentric order that feeds on male output while attacking male legitimacy. Men pay more in taxes over a lifetime than they receive. Women receive more in government transfers than they contribute. The state has become a substitute husband funded by the men it simultaneously demonizes. This is not equality. It is parasitism with the press office. And here is the self-refutation that should end the conversation. Premise 1. If women are a revolutionary class oppressed by men, then women lack agency under male systems. Premise 2. Women now control family courts, education systems, HR departments, therapy culture, voting majorities, and consumer spending. Conclusion: either women were never the powerless class the theory claims, or they are now the oppressor class by their own definition. The theory refutes itself inside one syllogism: women vote at higher rates than men. Women initiate 70% of divorces. Women receive presumptive custody in the overwhelming majority of contested cases. Women control 80% of domestic spending. If this is oppression, then the word has been hollowed out and worn as a mask, and the face behind it is not suffering, it is sovereignty. Count the fruits honestly, and the tree declares itself. Western fertility sits below replacement everywhere the revolution holds sway. Marriage rates collapse, fatherless homes multiply. Male suicide rises, men account for over 3/4 of all suicide deaths, and the revolution's response is to fund another awareness campaign featuring stock photos of women looking concerned. The civilization that inherited the cathedral, the university, the common law, the guild, and the mixed constitution now cannot reproduce itself and imports populations who do not share the values the revolution claims to defend. A civilization eating its seed corn while arguing about whether the corn has a gender is not progressing. It is dying with excellent public relations. The grammar of this ruin violates every transcendental the West once honored, being biological sex denied, 1. The family fragmented by divorce law and sexual chaos, true observable reality replaced by ideological narrative, good appetite elevated over duty, beautiful competence and excellence replaced by representation quotas and institutional ugliness, love, possession and sentimentality replacing covenant and sacrifice, justice, revenge and envy replacing proportionate judgment. Beings have natures, natures have ends. Men and women are not interchangeable economic units, but complementary forms with distinct tendencies, duties, and flourishing conditions. Deny nature, and you reap what every revolution reaps: sterility, confusion, loneliness, and the slow death of everything you inherited but refused to maintain. Revolution does not change by casting different ballots. It shifts by constructing parallel structures that reject its fatal flaws. Truth instead of story, skill instead of diploma, obligation instead of desire, kin instead of administration, logos instead of dogma. Re-establish fatherhood as civic foundation. Restore craft and mastery. Establish male-only spaces and rites of passage. Instruct sons in the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric. Guard due process. Tie rights to duties. Link authority to sacrifice. I want you to hold two images in your mind. The first, a man sitting at his kitchen table while a woman across from him radiates wounded silence, and he is running through every conversation, every glance, every word from the past week like a detective combing a crime scene where no one will tell him what crime was committed. The second, that same man 3 years later, divorced, living in a one-bedroom apartment, paying child support for children a court decided he is unfit to raise. Scrolling through a phone full of dating app profiles where women with 1,000-yard stares and student loans list their requirements as must be 6'0", must make 6 figures. No drama. He is not a cautionary tale. He is the product. He is what the revolution was designed to produce, a useful organism, milks for taxes, labor, and deference. Then discarded the moment he questioned the invoice. The wounded silence at the dinner table and the family court that stripped him of his children are not separate phenomena. They are the same weapon at different scales. One is tactic, the other is strategy. Both demand that a man prove his innocence against a charge nobody will name. You have now seen the machine from the inside. You have seen how the silent treatment is not communication, but anti-communication. A hostage negotiation where the hostage writes the ransom note. You have seen how the competence test is not evaluation, but extraction, designed so that the grading rubric is classified and the curve adjusts downward every time he passes. You have seen how male trauma is denied existence while female discomfort is elevated to national emergency, how 75% of suicides and 90% of workplace deaths are met with magazine articles asking, why won't men open up? as though the problem were insufficient vulnerability rather than systematic dispossession. You have seen how a 50-year feminist revolution that promised liberation delivered instead a civilization where women are lonelier, more medicated, and less fertile than any generation in recorded history where Sweden. The movement's crown jewel now watches its population vote itself out of existence, one childless apartment at a time. You have seen the data. The data is not your enemy. The data is the shout of reality against a culture that stuck its fingers in its ears in 1970 and has been humming ever since. Here is what I need you to understand, and what no institution, curriculum, or therapist will tell you. You were never the problem. You are the load-bearing wall. The silent treatment only works on a man who believes female emotional weather is the household's supreme climate. The competence test only works on a man who thinks his skill is provisional until a woman certifies it. The family court only destroys fathers because men have not yet built institutions that defend them. The revolution only eats what men feed it. Stop feeding it. When she goes silent, say once, "I see you are upset." When you're ready to tell me what is wrong, I will listen. And then go back to your reading, your work, your mission. When she audits your packing, your explanation, your competence against a rubric, she will not reveal, ask her plainly, what would satisfy you. And if she cannot answer, you have exposed the test. Build brotherhoods where men can name wounds in plain speech, without some therapy industrial functionary translating their grief into a billable hour. Demand that your local church, your school board, your family court treat fathers as infrastructure rather than income streams. Teach your sons the trivium before the culture teaches them submission. Teach your daughters that competence is measured by the bridge standing, not by the bystander's mood. The revolution told you that masculinity was a disease. It was wrong. Masculinity is the diagnosis. It is the immune response of a civilization that has been sick for 60 years and is finally beginning to sweat out the fever. You are not toxic. You are the antibody. Every bridge you build, every standard you enforce, every silent treatment you refuse to orbit, every hidden criteria test you expose, every father you defend, every son you form, every daughter you raise to respect competence over complaint, each of these is a brick in the wall the revolution cannot scale. The revolution's endgame is a beautiful, equal, lonely, childless apartment. Yours is a household the state cannot replace, a marriage the court cannot dissolve, a competence the bureaucracy cannot credential, and a truth no ideology can survive. The answer was never to win their argument. It was to build the civilization their argument cannot produce, and then watch them come and ask how you did it. Go and build. The bridge holds because you built it, and it does not need applause to stand. Sponsored book. Mission Command. Ogtrag Stocktick Empowered Decentralization. I spent decades watching men become shadows of themselves. In the military, I saw leaders hesitate, waiting for permission while missions failed. In business, I watched executives drown in bureaucracy, terrified to make a call. Society now calls natural male leadership toxic, while demanding we apologize for existing. I've been labeled a bigot for stating biological facts. Men and women aren't identical. Women bear children. Men build civilizations. This truth isn't hate, it's reality. Modern culture punishes strength and rewards weakness. That ends now. This book resurrects the warrior-philosopher framework that forged empires. We dissect Mission Command Auftragstaktik, the exact system that let Prussia crush Napoleon and Rommel dominate deserts. Forget democracy in crisis. We teach Spartan discipline, where orders are obeyed, not debated. You'll master Viking style, decentralized raids, Mongol speed tactics, and the Bushido Code's unbreakable honor. We expose how equality myths create chaos while biology proves male leadership isn't preference, it's necessity. Hormones, genetics, and 10,000 years of history agree: when men lead, societies thrive. When they're neutered, collapse follows. If you're a man ready to reclaim authority, this is your manifesto. Learn corporate blitzkrieg from Silicon Valley conquerors. Deploy media warfare tactics to shred critics. Dominate mating markets using sexual strategy rooted in evolutionary psychology. But if you believe men should embrace vulnerability or that gender is a social construct, stop reading. Put this book down. Go binge Netflix or attend a sensitivity workshop. This isn't for you. For the red-pilled warrior, these pages deliver actionable power. Nelson trusted captains to improvise at Trafalgar. We teach you that same trust-based command. Scharnhorst revolutionized armies by rewarding merit, not feelings. Lawrence broke rules to topple empires. You'll gain their playbooks, no theory, just proven tactics for real-world control. From boardrooms to bedrooms, decentralize, dominate, and never apologize. Your enemies are waiting. Crush them. Mission Command Augtragstaktik Empowered Decentralization, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.